They were a very poor family, and it was not the best of times. There was a mountain near their home, and the young son wanted so much to go exploring. He had been out with his father chopping wood, and would often ask what that cave was that you could see from the mountain. The father said, "No, don't think about that cave," but he always asked every time they went out to chop wood. One day, his father, quite weary from all the bad things that had been happening, they were low on food and everything, he was like, "Son, bandits go up into that cave and they hide their treasure. But we don't go after their treasure because they have a monster that guards that treasure." The son was like, "Oh, well, what kind of monster?" And he says, "I don't even know because it's a monster and I've never gone. But I've heard tales. So please don't go up to that cave." And they went home. And the father lay down, quite upset with himself. He knew they were low on food. It was just him and his son, and he didn't want to starve with the coming winter. He knew his son was adventurous, and although part of him hoped that his son would be smart and not go into that cave, part of him knew that if his son did go, he wouldn't be coming back. It would mean more food for him. But he fell asleep, and later that night, sure enough, the son went and climbed down the little ladder that he had outside of his window, because he would often like to go out at night and look for things. He liked to find the mushrooms and bugs that came out at night that glowed. But he would always have that ladder to climb back up if something had happened to chase him. He took a small lantern from his father's shed and what little bit of food he had stashed away and trekked up to that cave. It was a quiet night, and the moon above wasn't quite full, but almost. The forest animals seemed to not be around so much. He encountered a bat, but it didn't bother him, it just flew away. He managed to make it to the cave. There were no bandits. There was no monster guarding the entrance. He chuckled and thought maybe his father was actually hiding things away from there and from him so he wouldn't have the fun stuff that some of the other kids in town had. I don't know. He thought maybe there's like some kind of a lesson to be learned here. My dad's always trying to give me lessons. But then he seen it, the glint of gold on the chest that was over in the corner under some large palm leaves. He pushed the leaves aside. There was a large rock on top of the chest, too, and he knocked that off, pulled the chest out some, and opened it up, paying no mind to the awful racket he was making. Inside was several golden goblets. His eyes grew large as he lifted one and held it up into the lamplight. It had gems along the rims, but there was something inside. It was dried and caked on the inside of this one he held. He rubbed his thumb along the inside rim and smelled it. Blood? He shook his head. No, never mind. These goblets would give his family a lot of money if he found the right person to sell them to. He thought he heard something moving in the cave, like something sliding along the floor. He spun around and held his lantern high. He heard it again, but still couldn't see anything. But then he felt something grab him around the waist. The goblet toppled to the floor as something the size of an elephant's trunk started to wrap around him and squeeze him so tight. The lantern fell as well, and in the fading light of that lantern, the boy was squeezed to death by the large serpent that had been guarding that treasure.